The Lord be with you.
And with your spirit.
A reading from the Holy Gospel according to Mark. Glory to you, O Lord. At that time, Jesus said to his disciples, in those days, after that great tribulation, the sun will be darkened, and the moon will not give its light, and the stars will be falling from heaven, and the powers in the heavens will be shaken. And then they will see the Son of Man coming in clouds with great power and glory. And then he will send out the angels and gather his elect from the four winds, from the ends of the earth to the ends of heaven. From the fig tree, learn its lesson. As soon as its branch becomes tender and puts forth its leaves, you know that summer is near. So also, when you see these things taking place, you know that he is near, at the very gates. Truly, I say to you, this generation will not pass away before all these things take place. Heaven and earth will pass away, but my words will not pass away. But of that day or that hour no one knows, not even the angels in heaven, nor the Son, but only the Father. The Gospel of the Lord.
Praise to you, O Lord Jesus Christ.
God is good, and all the time. Dear brothers and sisters, today we celebrate the 33rd Sunday in ordinary time. We are approaching the end of the liturgical year. In 2 weeks' time, we will begin a new liturgical year with the season of Advent. As we approach the end of the liturgical year, the readings shift our focus to an important theme: the end of the world, the end of times, the day of judgment. So in these remaining days, we will be hearing about the end of time. And if you heard well today's readings, especially the Gospel and the first reading, they are apocalyptic in nature. They use powerful. So if you heard today's Gospel and the first reading, they use powerful and terrifying images to speak of the last day, of what will happen on the day of judgment. We heard this: on that day, the sun will be darkened, the moon will not give its light, the stars will be falling from the sky, and the powers of the heavens will be shaken. So here they are using a very powerful language to talk about the last day, the day of judgment. Things will be falling from the sky. These words can make us feel anxious and terrified. But how should we understand these apocalyptic readings today? Dear brothers and sisters, I would like to mention 3 points about today's apocalyptic readings. The first point, it is important to understand the context in which apocalyptic books were written. Apocalyptic books, like the book of Revelation or the book of Daniel, they were written during a time of severe persecution. They were intended not to frighten people, not to cause panic, but to give them hope. The apocalyptic images, they were meant to reassure those who were persecuted that God has not abandoned them, that God will rescue them very soon. The people to whom Daniel wrote, they were in exile, they were refugees, they were suffering terribly, they have given up hope. But Prophet Daniel is telling them, don't lose hope. God is coming very soon. He's coming to rescue you. So even if everything seems dark, even if everything seems terrible, God's rescue is near. Dear brothers and sisters, Prophet Daniel is telling us the same words today. We should not give up. We should not just say that everything is finished. When we have problems, when we are terrified, when we are going through difficult times, God's rescue is near. He's coming to help us, to rescue us. Today, we live in a world filled with anxiety. If you watch the news on TV or on the radio, you hear the news, there are so many bad news today. You hear of natural disasters, you hear of wars killing people in Gaza, in Sudan, in Ukraine. We hear of economic instability and political divisions. It is easy to feel as if the world is falling apart. But today's readings, they assure us that God is in control. We should not panic. God is with us and He will rescue us. Remember the final words that Jesus told His disciples before going up to heaven. I will be with you always till the end of time. And these words are still valid today. I will be with you always, even when you are going through difficult times, even when you are in a crisis. I will be with you always. I will rescue you. Don't lose hope. That's the first point. The second point, in today's gospel, Jesus uses the parable of the fig tree to teach us about vigilance. He says that when we see the fig tree and its branch becomes tender and put forth its leaves, we know that summer is coming. We can read the change of seasons by looking at trees and plants. This parable is an invitation for us to read the signs of times, to be attentive to God's presence around us, to live with an awareness that God's presence is unfolding even now. Dear brothers and sisters, the fig tree teaches us that Just as we recognize the change of seasons, we should also be able to recognize God's movements in our own lives. We should read the signs of times. Today we live in a world filled with distractions. It is easy to become spiritually blind and to ignore the signs that God is communicating to us. So the fig tree, this example, it invites us to be spiritually awake, to read the signs of the times, and to ask ourselves the following questions. Are we attentive to God's voice in the midst of our busy schedule? This question is very important. Every day we are busy, we go to work, we go to visit friends, and we can just remain like that without noticing the presence of God in our daily lives. Are you attentive? Are you aware that God is with you in your work, in your family, with your friends? Are you aware of God's presence around you? The third point, which is also my final point, in our first reading, Prophet Daniel speaks of a time when many of those who sleep in the dust will awake, some to everlasting life, and others to shame and disgrace. Some will rise for everlasting life, others will rise for shame and disgrace. This passage is a reminder that our choices in this world have consequences in the afterlife. Our choices in this world, they have consequences. The way we live our lives, the decisions we make, and how we treat others will determine our destiny, whether we will go to heaven or hell. So this is a call for each one of us to examine ourselves, our actions, our behaviors in this world. Are we living in a way that reflects God's love and mercy? Are we acting with compassion and integrity? As we go about our daily lives, let us examine our choices, whether they lead us to God or away from God. Our choices in this world have consequences in the afterlife. Dear brothers and sisters, in this Eucharist, let us ask for the grace to remain vigilant, to be spiritually awake. Let us discern God's presence in our own lives. Let us make choices that lead us closer to God. Let us commit ourselves to a life of love and service, so that when the Lord comes, He will find us ready to join Him in His kingdom. May the Lord be with you and with your spirit.